Chapter 6. University. Cal woke with a bright orange cover over his body and someone calling for him to wake up because they couldn't be late. Turning his head, he saw all his crew dressed and sitting in their seats ready for work. "You can dress while Mia takes us into orbit," Kira said. "She'll go slow for you." "It's supposed to be my ship," he muttered, hands around his eyes rubbing the sleep away, then searching in the new cupboard for his captain's clothes. "I need a snack," he said, trying to get his legs into his good pants while the floor was vibrating with the power of the thrusters winding up. At least the kitchen was the same, the women hadn't changed it yet. He was back and settled in his command couch before the ship had settled into the proper orbit, but that didn't stay for long. "Prepare to go fast," Mia called out like a kid about to make her first trip. "New seats ready for testing," Kira said. "Shields at 100%, Kira reported. "Blast off!" Cal yelled, in the silly manner the others had been adopting this morning. 2 hours of loud humming through the room, and 2 hours of the suns and planets on the holomap gyrating every which way, made sure he was fully awake and able to concentrate. As the Sea Stallion slipped out of ether space, the viewport showed a mainly red and green planet, with some blue areas of what would be oceans. "I've never seen our home planet like this," Kira said, both twins running to poke their noses against the main viewport. Mia had the exact landing site in her screen, and after a complete orbit, she set the craft into a long and slow descent, the twins staying by the viewport for the best view. "That has to be the university," Kira called when they were close to the ground. "I can see where we took that ship." Cal said nothing while Mia had complete control of the ship, guiding the craft to a perfect landing on the landing grounds adjacent to what had to be the university. "I know we're early, but the instructions were for us to stay in the ship," Cal reminded. "We should make sure everything is clean and tidy while we wait. But we should have the hatches open ready to accept visitors," Kira said. "Agreed," Cal was nodding. "And keep an eye out ready to welcome anyone that comes." "That's your job," Mia looking at Cal. "The captain always welcomes visitors. It's more than 2 hours to wait. Might be best you stay out of the way," Mia said. "The girls want to finish the wiring." He took the hint, opening the main hatch and wandering slowly around the outside of the ship, taking time to inspect the hull for any micrometeorite damage that might have penetrated through the shields. He considered opening the freight ramp too, but thought better of the idea when he imagined hordes of unsupervised students attacking the ship from both ends. Completely bored, he made a visit inside for a drink and noticed his crew had done more than tidy wiring. All 3 now had bright orange ribbons tied in their hair. "We got something for you too," Mia said. "It should be your size." That was the cue for both twins to disappear into their room and return carrying an orange top between them. "We got your name in it like ours," Kira said. "Now we'll all look the same," Kira added. He had to act pleased, taking off his favorite old top to replace it with one the same as the women. The standing Stallion logo on the back, and on the right top pocket captain, and below that, Cal. "Now you really look like our captain," Kira said, Kira nodding and reaching out to poke part of the material into place. "Everyone will know we belong," Mia said, a seriously wide smile on her face. "The girls said we should get you a pirate one too. For when we're doing dangerous jobs." "I like the ribbons," Cal said, pointing to the twins' hair. "Look at our necks," Kira said, poking a hand toward her neck and getting a small glittering thing from a chain. "It's a stallion," Kira said. "We all got them." There was a small gold horse attached to the flimsy-looking gold necklace. "They insisted I get one too," Mia said. "They wanted everyone to know what ship we were with, even if we weren't wearing our tops." "Thank you," he said, feeling more emotional than he imagined he should be. "Maybe I should go back to my waiting." "We're all coming to wait with you," Mia said. "We're all done inside now." 4 pairs of eyes watching didn't make anyone come any quicker, the ship parking area empty except for one small runabout in the opposite side of the square area. Kira was first to see someone, and now they had a direction. Everyone watched as more and more people came marching toward the ship. It looked to Cal like a school class out on an excursion, but of course it was. Striding in front was the same scruffy white hair and face that Cal had seen on the screen of his terminal. Professor Frank. I'm Cal, Cal said loudly when the line of people was close enough. Welcome to the Stallion. The twins will show you into the control room. Hands in your pockets, Professor Frank bellowed toward his charges. Looking only. Then with the professor looking at Mia, Cal said, and this is my pilot, Mia. Professor Frank scrutinized Mia from head to toe in a way that made Cal feel he was about to ask to buy her. We'll follow you inside, Cal said instead. Remember this is someone's home, the professor bellowed when they got to the control room door. Everyone stay in this room for now. Line up quietly along the walls. I'm sure we're all waiting for Kira and Kyra to tell us all about stealing the principal's runabout. Cal was standing alongside Mia, with the professor alongside her. They were just through the door with the twins further into the room and the throng of pupils all lined around the front viewport and the far side. The runabout, the professor prompted, glaring at the twins when nothing had been said. We didn't steal it, Kira said toward the professor. We only borrowed it for our experiments, Kyra said softly. We were testing our changes to the thrusters to increase their power, Kira added quickly. We had increased the maximum thrust by 19% when everything stopped and we were flying over the dark side of the planet. We were trying to find the problem when we felt a ship dock with us and 3 large men came and grabbed us and dragged us into their craft. We tried to ask them what was happening but they pushed us into a freight pod and we were there for ages. No food or water either. And it was so dark too. Eventually the door was open and some men tied us together with chains and we were put in a pen with other different people. We found out we were in Grand Bazaar and the others told us we were now slaves. That brought a lot of murmuring from the students, and when the professor spoke, his tone had mellowed a little. Do you know the ship that got you? We tried to see, Kyra said. Our guess was an old mining ship. Maybe a 56 class. And your captors? Not sure, Kira said. They had thick old uniforms and spoke roughly. You know the principal blames you for everything. If I had sent you to the university building today he would have called the law. The students were still murmuring together while they stared at the twins with wide eyes. Cal here rescued the girls, Mia said. He saw them crying as some creature wanted to buy only one of them, and he used all our credits to buy Kira and Kyra and give them a life on our ship. We weren't really crying, Kira said quickly. He was a smelly old scaly creature, Kyra added. I see you are engineers now, and you haven't even graduated, Professor Frank said looking between both girls. They're great engineers, Cal said quickly. I couldn't ask for better. But the authorities. The professor was staring at Cal now. We don't do regular work, mainly urgent deliveries of mining parts and things like that. We've got a video of us controlling freight, Kira said quickly. It was sent over the screens, and they said we were heroes. 2 girls were quickly manipulating screens, getting the video of them rescuing a pod on the main screen and the students were all moving to get a better look. Some at a time, the professor said. No reason to crush. I'll show you the rest of the ship while they're occupied, Cal said to the professor. The man nodded and Cal led through the back of the control room and into the passage toward the freight hold. Twins' room to the right and kitchen to the left. They sabotaged the university kitchen, you know. Cleverest thing I've seen. The professor was standing staring into the twins' room. Most pupils reprogram the auto kitchen to add a laxative to the food, but that was not good enough for them. Poop. They programmed all the meals in the color and shape of poop. Still tasted normal though. I ate it. I knew they would never hurt anyone. They're good like that. Not a mean bone in their body. I think of them as our children, Cal said softly, listening to those in the control room explaining about freight pods. Most of us did too, Professor Frank said. We gave them too much latitude though. They were orphans, you know. We all felt. The man turned and looked further down the passage. Spare parts room to the right and bathroom to the left, then spare room to the right and another spare to the left, Cal said. No medical. In your line of work, I thought an automedic would be a necessity. We'll need to do some more good-paying jobs first. And that's the freight deck. The professor pointed. Cal opened the door and beckoned him through. You didn't come here for me to approve your ship. The twins told me we are nearly out of fuel rods. And they were a type they didn't and couldn't know about. Yes. I don't know you at all. You could be anyone. The twins trusted you, and I trust you enough to tell you the truth in all you asked, Cal said. I'm not a real captain. All I ever wanted to do was to own my own ship. Finally I managed that, but it's costing half of every credit we earn until it's paid in full. Then I managed to get the most perfect pilot, and then almost by accident I found the best engineers I could ever have dreamt. I'm hoping that soon we will be a real family and able to enjoy our life living in this craft and traveling all the wonders of the galaxy. I had dreams like that years ago, the professor said wistfully. Life and work slowly smothered them all. If you want to join us for a mission, Cal said. If you ever get the time, that is. We better see what damage those students are up to. No damage, only an intense discussion of carnival rides. Time to look through the rest of the ship, Professor Frank said to his students. See what it's like to live in a real spaceship. Wheel guide, Kira said, and all attention focused at getting everyone out the control room. Mia stayed back, nodding to Cal. Would you mind if I called for the thrusters to be activated later? The professor asked. Cal looked at Mia. Of course, she said. An orbit too if you like. I'll make it gentle. A demonstration of course setting too if you can. It's good for them to see it on a real ship. Some of them have never left the ground. Behind them was a growing chatter. Time to get them focusing on work again, the professor said, walking after his charges. I like him, Mia whispered to Cal. He cares for our twins as much as we do. I told him the truth before, Cal said. I trust him too. Behind them was the sound of the professor telling things he wanted his students to take notice, and after some minutes, the crowd began to filter back to the control room. Now you can say you have been in a Mark III Imperial battlecruiser. It might be 500 years old, but it represents the peak of engineering for its time, and in some ways even now. The students were all quiet, paying attention to him. It might seem small, but it was the fastest and most powerful ship in the galaxy in its day. You saw those large thrusters when we came in. They are the biggest thrusters ever built. Aether travel was only just beginning, and those huge engines were used to outrun everything. After their time, thruster size reduced since everyone relied more on aether drive. Was the aether drive in this ship as good as now? A lad with thick glasses asked. Nearly. Nearly. In practice, the newer drives are quieter, but really speed depends on the pilot more than anything else. Now if you stand where you can see the screens without getting in the crew's way, the crew will demonstrate some important things for you in real life. Much better than the simulator. Crew to their normal positions, Professor Frank ordered. The twins had taken their chairs on the weapons and engines consoles and Mia was reclining in her pilot's couch. Before we start the thrusters, what do we do as engineers? The professor pointed to one lad who seemed more interested in what was out the viewport. Make sure we have enough power, sir. Good. Good. But as well. He pointed to another lad. Check for extraneous power drains, sir. Excellent. See Kira here, she's in charge of the engine's console, and the screen there is showing only 5% of available power being used. Plenty left for shields and thrusters. Could the pilot now show how she sets a course? Maybe here to the third planet of the new Yankee 7 system. Mia worked her screens and soon the holomap turned on, showing the whole galaxy, and with a thin blue course line showing their origin near the middle to the destination way out on the outer arms. How long would you expect the trip take? Professor Frank said quietly to Mia. A little less than 2 hours. That's a long journey. It's through relatively smooth ether space, Mia said. And we're in a fast ship. That's the benefit of working with a good pilot, the professor said loudly to his students. But a fast trip puts a bigger burden on you. The professor scanned around, catching every student's eyes. A fast journey means everything in the ship must be working perfectly. No possibility of a fault in the shields or a loss of power in the middle of nowhere. Remember, a good pilot needs a great engineer behind her. How are our shields, Engineer Kyra? Shields ready for use, Kyra called out. Captain, would you allow me to instruct your crew for some tests? You have the command, Cal said. Hatches closed and clearance given. Ignite thrusters. The growing noise and vibration of the thrusters seemed to unsettle some of the students, but the twins were acting like professionals, calling out power and thrust levels as Mia prepared to lift off. Ready for one gentle orbit, Mia said, manipulating the holomap so it showed the ground ahead of them. Now watch the shield load and the thrust level. There should be very little for the shields to do, but the thrusters will keep changing as the atmosphere changes. The efficiency? One lad asked. 36 doesn't seem right, sir. Well spotted, the professor said, the lad beaming happily. What would you imagine the problem to be? The thruster not working properly, sir. That gave a laugh from the crowd. Are both thrusters the same? The professor asked the same lad. Yes, sir. So the problem, if there is a problem, applies equally to both thrusters. They could be worn out, sir, another lad called out. And what would make a thruster seem worn out? The professor asked, looking over the room. Ion pitting, he said when no one had offered a solution. Remember that. They might want to look out the viewport, Mia said. It's a pretty planet. Most of the students had heard and even without the professor's permission were making their way to the window. To think in another year they will be in charge of their own ship, Professor Frank mumbled. The twins the only ones of his class still at their station. Maybe 2 orbits to let them settle. Halfway into the second orbit, the professor came close to Cal, his mouth next to Cal's ear. You have the next 2 days free. Cal nodded. Wait for me to finish with this class. Maybe a couple of hours, and then we can talk. Then loudly to his students, now you are all experienced space engineers, who can tell me what load was on the shields as we began our descent. That started a rush of people to go back to standing near the consoles. You can see how important it is to balance the power fed to the thrusters and that fed to the shields. Losing shield power could leave you shredded, while losing thruster power would see you slowly burnt and the remains splattered on some rock somewhere. It's your job to make sure to maintain a perfect balance at all times. The landing was so smooth most didn't even know they had stopped. Thank the crew for allowing us to see over their ship, the professor said, his students murmuring thanks. Now all form up in a line, and we'll return to the classroom. That was more trouble than negotiating a difficult delivery, Cal said once the ship was back to being their home. I didn't realize how hard being a professor was, Kira said. We weren't as bad as them, Kyra said. What he was saying about the thrusters, Mia said toward the girls. We're going to study up about it now, Kira said. We'll know before Professor Frank comes back. That planet he had you look up, Cal said. I think he was pointing us where to go for fuel rods. It is a mining type area, Mia said. I'll see what I can find about it. While the women did their studying, Cal walked carefully through the ship, checking for anything out of place or changed, and when he returned to the control room he was offered a lot of information. Mia reported that the new Yankee 7 system was rich in the rare elements needed for fuel, and the twins had learned that ion pitting in thrusters could only be fixed by replacing the affected parts. We need to fix it, Kira said. Imagine more than twice as much thrusters now. We'll be able to race every other ship, Kyra added. We've got plenty of thrust now, Mia said, shaking her head. But we might need more when we're running from pirates, Kira said excitedly. Maybe that will be something we look at once we have our power problem under control, Cal said. That's a good captain sort of decision, Mia said. Logic and sense. But not as much fun, Kira muttered. Nearly planet night before a Soul figure was noticed staggering toward the ship, packs straining in both hands. Cal ran forward. That big one, the professor grunted. In your storeroom. Freed of most of the weight, the professor was able to move smartly toward the ship while Cal was left puffing to keep up. That professor was really a strong old man. Just some spare clothes, the professor said when he reached the control room, his eyes glancing down at the pack in his hand. You can leave your things in the twins' room, Mia said. Cal was left to lug the large pack through to the storeroom alone. Back with everyone standing awkwardly in the control room, the professor spoke again. I'm used to trying to keep students in control. Very little time with others, the man said, his voice trailing off. Maybe it was wrong of me to invite myself on a trip. Never, Mia said. My husband would never have allowed you here if he didn't think it was the best thing. He always looks out for our safety and what's best for all of us. We agree, the twins said together, while Cal was still struck numb by what Mia had said. The professor looked at the twins. You two have grown up so much. His voice trailing off. Maybe I should set you a task before we talk more. A task that will test your real ability. He was talking more like a professor again now. Remember that this craft was once one of the first-line Imperial warships. A craft that could go anywhere, and handle anything the galaxy could throw at it. Now think of what it is now. The changes made to it. All the features and things removed to turn it into a simple freighter. A lot, Cal said. So much gone. But is it? The professor said with sudden passion. People are so lazy these days. All those circuits and actuators spread in every corner of the hull. All too much. Why take things out when they could lock them from use? Be lazy. A few moments on the consoles and it as if all those things that made this craft an Imperial warship are gone. So easy and so much time saved. So this could still be a warship, Kira said excitedly. A real pirate ship, Kira yelled. A very fast and secure freighter, the professor said. Look at your scanner. The twins competed to get the scanner on the main screen. It showed those vessels around them out just beyond visual range. They used it to avoid collisions and to steer far away from other ships to prevent disturbance. That's the standard civilian scanner, but do you imagine the Imperial ships have the same system? They would have longer range, Kira said. Details of all the ships, Kira added. So why haven't you unlocked the full power of this extended scanner then, the professor said. I know you found an old book. I feel like a snack. Maybe by the time I've eaten, that scanner will be working better. I'll show you the kitchen, Cal said, the professor nodding and followed Cal out from the control room. The girls added a lot of ingredients they liked, so maybe there will be things you like too. I'm taking over your ship again, the man said softly. Sorry. I like what you're doing, Cal said. You can be captain for the time and I'll learn things too. Maybe I'm acting out my own dreams on your ship. From where I see this going so far, our dreams match in many ways. The professor studied the kitchen menu, poking the list and saying and so as the list slid across the screen. That one, he said, and they waited for the auto kitchen to create the meal. A few too many sweets on the menu for my palate. Let me know what you like and I'll get them to add it when we stock up again. You assume I'm flying with you again then. And you weren't. Both men laughed and in the following silence while the meal came from the hopper there was not a sound from the rest of the ship. Women thinking hard, Cal said. 5 minutes, Professor Frank said. Those girls are the best code breakers I've ever seen. The meal eaten and there was still silence when the two men got back to the control room. Cal could see changes to the main screen. Now there was a multitude of icons and symbols in many colors with 3 women staring hard at the scene. We shouldn't be allowed to see this, Mia said. It's too much for us to know. It shows every vessel and all its details, Kira said. There's things we never thought was there, Kira added, her tone awed for once. I see you've unlocked the extended range scanner, the professor said casually. And the feed from the Imperial ship database too. That was good work. The Imperial database? Mia said, a trifle alarmed. It's safe, the professor said. It's fed throughout the ether for all Imperial ships and outposts to use. Just select a ship on the screen and see. Two girls competed to select, and the screen changed to show a list of information about the chosen vessel. As well as the usual name and class, was details of engine, power, facilities for crew and passengers, amount of freight space, and names of certificated crew. Can we see our ship? Kira said before Cal had finished reading the whole list. Offset the screen and you should be able to get it, the professor said. Cal watched the girls work, and when their ship was visible on the screen it had a yellow flag attached to its icon. The Sea Stallion is special, Kira said excitedly. Not in a good way, I'm sure, Mia said. Select that flag and we'll see, Professor Frank said carefully. Suspected of handling and certificated strategic materials, the note said, and below that a list of places that included Cyrus mining and the planets they had delivered goods to for them. Looks like they've been keeping an eye on you, the professor said, everyone else quiet for once. It's good we know this now. Doesn't seem good to me, Cal said. How do they know so much? Kira asked the professor. We don't tell them. Select the ship and choose log. Kira did, and several let out a groan. In front of them was their track around the galaxy with dates and times added to the course track. See, it tells when you engaged ether drive and left it. Where you stopped and how long. Who you commed and who commed you. It's all recorded automatically through your transponder and sent instantly through the ether back to the Imperial Central Base. What if we spliced in a second transponder? Kira asked. Wouldn't that make them lose us? It would show your track until you switched transponders, then show the new one that takes its place. That would set an alarm and someone would come to check. Even if we switched the transponder during ether space? Kira asked. Normal or ether space, there is no difference since this information is sent through an ether stream. We're doomed, Mia said. It's only a warning note, the professor said gently. If they wanted to take action it would change to a red flag. There must be a way to hide from them, Kira said. If there is, no one has told me, but I'm sure there is a possibility it could be done. You'll help us, won't you? Kira asked. We don't like that Imperial crowd watching us. I've only got 2 days, so how about we make to move and we can think more on it as we go. The Sea Stallion Book 1. Big Dreams but No Credits. A Space Adventure. By Mystic Alchemist. Copyright 2023-2024 Mystic Alchemist. All rights reserved. Written in Australian English. This book is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places and incidents are either a product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual people living or dead, events or locales is purely coincidental. Cover and text written and assembled by hand without use of artificial intelligence.